Hello, and welcome to the Sacred Heart Shaman podcast, where we talk about spiritual healing, shamanic wisdom, and the challenges of walking the healer's path. My name is Nadia Harinki, and today's episode number 37, Parenting Indigo and Rainbow Children, Holding Space for the Souls of the Future. Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the podcast today. We are speaking of something that is deeply rooted in my soul in more than one way. And we're going to talk about what it's really like as a parent whose child is not just sensitive, but who are here on a spiritual mission. Some people call them indigo children or rainbow children. Whatever the term, these are kids whose energy is different. Their sensitivity is different, and the way they move through the world requires a different kind of parenting. Now, this episode is part love letter and part survival guide because raising these children is an honor and it can be absolutely overwhelming and unimaginably challenging. First, we'll talk about what indigo and rainbow children are. So, I first heard the term rainbow child when I had a session with my seer. Almost 2 years ago now, I brought my kids in for a session, and she told me that my youngest was a rainbow child. I had never heard this term before, but I had heard of the term indigo children, and it kind of caused me to go down a bit of a rabbit hole, but I still didn't even find any material on it until fairly recently. And so I've been digesting what this actually means and how to talk about it and how to share about it with other people. Now, it's my understanding that indigo children are kind of the earlier wave of special kids, special people who came to this planet. They are considered the warriors, the truth seers, the system busters, the people who are here to mess shit up. Now, Dolores Cannon wrote quite a bit about these types of children, I believe, in some of her books and how there's different waves. And there are periods of time where many of these kids were born, but there was always, a select few that would come in first, that would come in decades before the rest. As I understand it, that happens with all of the different waves. So the indigo children were some of the earliest, I believe. And crystal children, I think, come next, typically. They're believed to be like highly psychic and highly sensitive, but without the darker energy or the anger that can be associated with indigo children. Now, I believe that my first child is somewhere on this spectrum, though I'm not sure. I'll talk about her a little bit later in this podcast. Extremely gifted, extremely strong-willed. And I didn't have a choice with her coming into this world. Now, my second child is of the third wave, which is the rainbow children. And these children have pure heart energy. They are often very new to Earth's density, incredibly empathic. They're often seen as having strong intuitive abilities, a good sense of inner peace, and a really, really strong desire to help others. Now, in this belief system of children, the rainbow children are believed to be here to help usher in a new era of love and of peace and understanding. A lot of people believe that the rainbow children are less burdened by karmic baggage, which would be like heavy unresolved stuff from our past lives, more so than indigo and crystal children. Now, this is an interesting thing for me to finally start talking about because I see these things pretty clearly in my clients. I see the types of planets that people come from, the types of gifts and abilities that they've brought with them. And, a huge chunk of my clients are not from Earth. They are very extraterrestrial. And, it's kind of a different level when you're talking about parenting them versus helping them as adults. But nevertheless, I'm excited to start diving into a more complex topic. So, in my experience, Indigo and Rainbow children did not come here to blend in. They came here to wake us up. They challenge everything: school systems, family dynamics, emotional norms, gender norms, and even our own unprocessed trauma. These are the kids who know when you're lying, who feel it when the energy of the room shifts, who cry when animals get hurt, or who tell you what your soul contract is over breakfast. Right. Each of these children are very different, but very distinctly different. And I think if we talked about this a bit more, perhaps people would be open to what their children want to bring in and open to supporting them there so that they can bring them in instead of providing another generation of trauma. Now, first, I want to say these individuals exist on a spectrum. It's not like a black and white definition, it's not linear. It's very broad and ever changing, and I'm sure that every generation looks different as well. So we're going to talk, I don't know, more big picture than details, but I will provide some examples of what this looks like in real time. So these children have levels of empathy that I don't think the average person can comprehend, right? So, for example, let's use psychedelics as an example, right? If any of us has ever had an experience with mushrooms or LSD or ayahuasca, you know that if you are exposed to a certain vibration, emotion, person, memory, especially one that's outside of yourself, you can feel it so deeply. Like you feel it at your core, in your soul. The emotional intensity is beyond anything you could imagine. These kids live in that space all the time. These generations of spiritual beings do not need psychedelics. And if you've been following me for a while, you know that I actually don't advocate for wide use of psychedelics, um, because we all have access to this space, and these kids even more so. So they're like this all the time. Everything feels like a level 10. Now, most of us are so numb and we're so inside our boxes and our constructs that we don't even know what it's like to feel deeply. Never mind feeling deeply all the time. And these kids are in that category. And we really have to work hard to honor them there, witness them, even if we can't fully understand, to believe them when they say, "Hey, mom, this hurts at the core of my being." Like, you know what I mean? So their level of empathy for others, their level of emotional intensity is at peak. It's at peak what we could imagine. And they come right out of the womb that way until we teach them not to. They have a deep resistance to control or authority. And with good reason. We have a lot of constructs and a lot of structure in our society that are complete bullshit. And they see it and they know. Like school. Oh my God. School is my favorite one to talk about because they can see the circus, they can see the insanity. They see everybody pretending. They see that we're doing stuff we shouldn't be doing and wasting our time and our energy on because it's inefficient and stupid, right? If you've ever attended an alternative education situation, you know that you need to go to school for like 2 hours a day. And in public school, the other 6 hours is complete garbage. It's fluff. It's memorizing stuff for tests that we don't need just so we can make sure we get state aid. And it's just so convoluted and nonsensical, and these kids see right through it. They see truth is what it is. They see truth. And so whenever we are trying to control or assert some kind of authority over, they want nothing to do with it. We could really learn something from this, allowing them to question what's in place so that you can question it for yourself. Let them be your teacher. They have so much to teach us. They are typically highly psychic and spiritually gifted. So, on that note, I have two children that are in this category. I think I have one indigo child, perhaps, and then one rainbow child, and they're very different. So, my oldest, who's 19 now, she has been a medium since she could talk. She sees spirits, she sees energy, entities. We go hiking and she tells me about all the beings in the woods and the colors they are and what their houses look like. The veil is very thin for that one. And if she wanted to pursue being a medium, I think she could be one of the best in the world. She doesn't, at least not right now. But she's what do they call it? A physical medium, as if it's right in front of you. And they're super rare. And it's always been really clear. And even through her teenage years, she has not turned it off. She hasn't been able to turn it off. Highly, highly gifted in that arena. My youngest is on a totally different spectrum. He sees things instance before they happen, trajectories. He can pull thoughts out of your head. So empathic to the point that he can merge with your thought field. And it won't affect him, but he can regurgitate it instantly. At this point, there's a lot of astral travel coming in and out of his awareness, super sensitive to energy, super sensitive to places. He requires a lifestyle that is very different from everybody else's. It's actually very close to mine. A lot of travel, a lot of movement, ultra sensitive to every food that gets put in the body, every person we interact with, every system we expose ourselves to, even every TV show that we watch. We are deeply, deeply impacted because the level of sensitivity is insane. So we can be doing well, but as soon as, let's say, there's a diet change for even a couple days, it knocks everything off the rails. So with that kid, I have to be super careful of my own thoughts. I have to be doing my own work at like level 100. He calls me on my bullshit constantly. He can see, feel, experience when I'm stressed out, when I'm in conflict, when I don't have confidence in myself. He can see it like he's me, right? And so if they need parents who are stable and unshakable, whatever you're going through is something they're going to pick up instantly. Or if you're not in your power, or if you're being abused. Have to be really careful because you can traumatize them just by proxy, not by even being a traumatizing person. And that's kind of a huge piece to this rainbow child puzzle is that you can traumatize by proxy. Kids in general are very empathic. If they're in a house with another kid who's being abused, they can tap into that field so deeply that it's as if they have been abused. And that's really something to keep in mind on the healing journey as well. A lot of people have memories and experiences that come up that aren't theirs. It doesn't mean they don't need to process it as if they are theirs, or at least do a very distinguishing practice of this wasn't mine, now I can put it down, or now I can put it away. Now, so far, my rainbow child has not passed that empath point. It still exists very deeply in him. It's going to be an ongoing process of maintenance to keep things clean and clear, to have discernment between self and other. He requires somebody like me to raise him so that this world doesn't take him down. He also feels the collective very deeply, the collective hate for gender issues. He's non-binary. Now, my experience with that has been terrifying. It's super painful. I've had experiences in like an altered state, like in the shamanic state, of not having gender in my body and the pain and agony that it is to try to force gender on something that's not supposed to have it. So a lot of these kids come from planets where there's no gender, there's no constructs, there's no boxes, and then they're forced to live in this place where there are all of those things, and being here is super painful. Of course they don't want to be here. Not only does nobody understand, but they get hate for it too. So this kid has a very challenging path. And by agreeing to come to Earth and embody this space of both and, or the third gender, or the non binary, or whatever you want to call it, he is helping break down constructs for all of society, for all of people everywhere. By holding that vibration, that energy, it forces the constructs to be questioned, to start to be dismantled, and it makes space for the other. Like the God energy, love energy, it's very all encompassing, non binary. It's both and. And a lot of us don't let that energy into our being, into our hearts. So he's got a big job ahead of him, and he requires expert level parenting in order to accomplish it. These children are often extremely sensitive to sound, chemicals, food, and energy. So to have autistic type tendencies, to not do well in certain places, publicly speaking, due to sound or other people's energy or the energy of a space or a house or an event. If an event feels bad, I can't be there. And my kids are the same way. And so we have to be careful never to force them, right? There's a difference between a kid just being a kid and mom, this doesn't feel good. Mom, I don't like it here. You have to listen. There's something there for you to see. Now, chemicals in food as well. I've noticed that with myself and my kids, there are certain things that are more important than others. There's certain stuff that impacts us on a 3D level. And I find that people often get carried away in this sensitivity realm. Like they often move into victim. Like we can't live near cell phone towers and we can't live near electricity and Wi-Fi and this and that. And like the truth is, your spirit can actually bypass most of that and it won't even touch you. But there are some things, depending on the person, depending on the body and the DNA, that can impact you more greatly than others. So, like for me, it's certain foods. Same with my kiddo. Chemicals don't seem to be a big one for us. Neither do certain energy waves, but food can tend to be for sure. And then the energy of other people can tend to be. So, your child's level of sensitivity or your level of sensitivity will depend on you as a specific being and where you come from and what's already programmed into the body. But make no mistake, everything can be unprogrammed. So, there is even no permanency there. These kids often also have a deep sense of justice and calling things out. So, as I mentioned before, broken systems, right? Like these are the kids who are going to come in and refuse to participate in the Hunger Games or the 9 to 5. They're not doing it. This shit doesn't work. Why are we still doing it? And the sense of justice for those who are not being treated well, who are not being served well. Now, it's hard to come into this world with these characteristics because there's no place for us. There's no place for our kids. They're basically told to sit down and shut up because our parents were. And I believe that's one of the reasons that suicide rates are so high. That's one of the reasons why addiction is so bad and we have so much mental illness is because we're trying to mold the new generations to what used to be instead of being open to what it is and what it will be. And these kids often have a deep sense of being misunderstood, feeling like there's something wrong with them, like they don't belong here. They just don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. It doesn't feel good. They're not from here. Of course, they don't want to be here. It's super dense. It's super challenging. Everybody's asleep. As a parent, you have to be their advocate. You have to be their bridge. And you have to be able to open to what they have for us, right? Because we always get the kids that we're supposed to get, period. We choose each other. I promise that's how it works. With my oldest, I had her when I was 19, and I was told that I couldn't have children. And I was on birth control. and I got pregnant. And, although I still had a choice, free will and all that, I could have not gone through with it. I felt like I was being told that I had to. And now here she is. She's 19 this year. Um, I can see why. There is some unfinished stuff that needs to be wrapped up in the bloodline, and she's the one doing it. And it's a hard role. And she signed up, and we're finally getting to the healing work together. It's been great. And my other kiddo, he's not working with ancestry at all. He is working on big community, collective, earth level stuff, just like me. Now, sometimes I forget how not normal this stuff is. Like when I have conversations with my child about their dreams or about weird things that happen, like just yesterday, he was like, I feel like I'm being rushed in and out of my body every 90 seconds. What? You are forced astral traveling right now? What's going on? Like, we need to lay down and allow this to happen instead of fighting it. Or he says something that's exactly what I needed to hear, or points out the synchronicity that I miss. Or when they were younger, the meltdowns that they would have, that was not about what was happening in front of them. It was about something much bigger. I dropped my youngest off at a new school a couple years ago, and he was the first one to go through the school in their transgender program. So they changed his name in the school system, had a bunch of paperwork, a bunch of accommodations. Born female, identifies as male, for those who don't understand. And recently we've moved into non-binary, which I believe is much closer to like a core truth for him. But we went into the school system and their transgender protocol, and we did so as the first family who had been through as a transgender child. And the program had been running for several years. And we sat down with the principal and came up with strategies and safety plans and preferences. What bathroom do you want to use? What sport do we want to get involved in? Who's your safe person in case you get bullied? We went through all the things. And I remember driving away from school that day, bawling my eyes out, first of all, because, it was hard. But second, I felt like he was doing it on behalf of all the kids who couldn't. All the kids who want to, who don't have parents to support them. And that is a big ass burden that my child has undertaken. And I felt it so deeply. And you have to remember that too. The job that they have signed up for is sometimes so much bigger than you can imagine. There are so many people here who sign up to carry on behalf of generations and groups of people just to get things moving on a collective level. Now, it turns out my child did not do well in that environment. It started out okay, and then we started getting comments like, why don't you go kill yourself? A lot. The bullying was real, and it wasn't a fault of the staff. They had great protocols in place. It's a phenomenal school, honestly. It was the other kids. And we had complaints and suspensions and punishments, but you can't control other children. And when you have a kid who feels everything on level 100, every jab feels like it's going to kill them. So we're rounding out 8th grade right now remotely and looking for alternatives for high school. I suspect college won't be too big of an issue, but high school is still going to be a thing. And this comes up against another one of those systems, which is the school system. How do you properly educate a child without sending them to the school, which may or may not be great for their situation, but knowing that they're not meant to sit in class for 7-8 hours a day. They're not meant to have to choose which bathroom they want to use. Their energy is better spent in other places. And by forcing them into these situations, we force them into spaces that create mental illness, that create ADHD symptoms, or enhance them. I have my own beliefs about ADHD not really being a problem. It's just a marker of a spiritual person. typically. Someone who needs to live life differently than everybody else. And when it comes to school, we have to choose public school, private school if you have money, or homeschool if you have time. And that's it. And that's all we get to choose from if my kid wants a higher education. No pressure. So sometimes these children are misdiagnosed with ADHD, autism, sensory processing disorder, or even schizophrenia if they're highly psychic. Most of them don't have any of these issues. They just need someone to show them how to function, to give them the container to thrive in a world that's not set up to receive them. Now, as a parent, this is a spiritual stewardship position. It's a soul contract. And I knew ever since my kids were young that they were not mine. They were not mine to have. They were not mine to hold. I was here to make sure that they survived. Period. Point A to point B. And so I never had an attachment to my children, and it used to really embarrass me. I felt a lot of shame to say that out loud. Like, it's not that I don't care about them, but I'm not attached to them. Like, they are not mine. I need to feed them and clothe them and try to minimally traumatize them, which is kind of impossible because no matter what, you're going to traumatize your children. Don't bother trying not to. But they weren't really mine. And I've always had a clear picture of that. And I try to teach other people that as well, because we do get too attached to our kids and try to like imprint all our shit on them and make them fit into the boxes. And that's not what they're here to do. So you have to understand as a parent of one of these children that you were chosen by this specific soul for a reason. Your healing will be part of their path. You don't need to be perfect, but you do need to be present. You do need to be the best version of yourself that you can be. Of course, this goes to any parent, but especially so for one of these gifted kiddos. And grounded parenting is spiritual parenting, right? Being present, being in your body, being aware of your own stuff and the stuff happening around you is literally the best thing you can do. It's going to be messy. It's going to be ugly. You're going to mess up. All of those things are okay and expected. And these kids are so full of love and understanding that they're going to love you more for being all of those things, not less. Most importantly, these children require truth, boundaries, and safety. And for me personally, I thought I was living from a space of truth while my kids were growing up. I totally wasn't. I was living from a space of wounded trauma. My boundaries I also thought were great. They weren't. No, they were being steamrolled every day. And the environment we were living in was not safe. It was not safe for me and it was not safe for them. And it really reflected back on them. Now, I try not to get too caught up in the past because I think things happen the way that they need to happen and there's no point in dwelling on it. But at least I can take my experience and use it to help other people. You know, if you have sensitive kids and they are really struggling, call somebody like me to look at your family dynamic, to look at all the pieces, the siblings, the parents, the household, the routines. Like, where are we missing something? Get somebody else to help because I wish that I could have done that. My kids have struggled for a long time. And my 19-year-old tried to kill herself almost 3 years ago and she almost succeeded. Maybe it was 4 years ago. And it rocked our family because it came out of nowhere. It didn't really come out of nowhere, but we thought it did. And then my youngest continues to struggle with self-harm, suicide, anxiety, really, really intense things that go above and beyond like the bullying and the gender identity. And it was a result of the home environment. And I couldn't see it clearly and unfortunately didn't have anybody else who could. My seer dropped some seeds for me a few years ago, but I didn't want to hear it at the time. But that's one of the things that I do in my work is help people identify like what's happening inside the family that could be tweaked, that could be resolved, that could be illuminated in order to help these kids thrive, because I am seeing a lot more magical children in the last couple years like you wouldn't believe. Super super gifted children. We're not just raising children in this scenario. We're tending to a soul with a mission. And fortunately or unfortunately, this means doing the inner work that it brings up in us. And that's the rub. They will mirror every shadow that we haven't healed, every place where our inner child still hurts. Your nervous system becomes their first earth template. And if they can feel safe with you, they can learn how to root into this world. And that's a sacred task. My role has been that, which is also with most of my clients, to teach spiritual beings how to human. That's been my biggest role as a parent. It's like, how do we function in 3D and function as a highly spiritual being? And, I couldn't do that without doing it for myself, both acknowledging that I'm a spiritual being and that I have human stuff that I need to get under control, that I need to deal with. So, some of the most common challenges with raising these children, gosh, let's be real. Parenting these kids can be super intense. The list of challenges just goes on forever. I'll talk about some of the big ones. The high emotions are a huge issue, mostly because we have learned to dim or dull our emotions. And so when they have outbursts or regulation issues, it's hard to even identify it because we're not identifying it within ourselves, or because they go way deeper than we do and we have struggled doing it ourselves. So that's kind of an ongoing one that I see and that I experience personally. It's super easy to feel isolated and misunderstood by other parents and professionals. We constantly go through doctors and therapists and other people as I try to explain that my kid is special, that my kid is different. And I've had to start straight up saying, like, oh, my kid's a psychic. So they understand what I mean when I say he's super sensitive to your energy, to medication, to environments. Mostly I just get written off like I'm a crazy person. So I've had to tweak my words, but it can feel very isolating. It's important to find other people on this path, especially practitioners, which is why referrals are so important. Navigating all the systems that don't fit your child's needs, which is literally all of them: schools, hospitals, medical, mental health, extracurriculars, community, church. They just don't fit because these kids are from the next paradigm. They're from the future, literally. It's challenging to hold that tension between giving them freedom and creating structure. It's always a balancing act of like, I want you to be in tune with what you need. And I know that we have to have a structured schedule or you're going to go off the rails and it's going to take us a week to recover. And that requires me having my own insane structure, which I hate as a spiritual person because I just want to feel my feels and use my intuition. That's been really hard. And a big one is protecting their energy and yours. Again, with listening to your intuition on going certain places, on being with certain people. It's kind of like when you have, this is a terrible analogy, but like when you have a dog, you're a dog person, and your dog doesn't like someone, immediately you're like, ooh, my dog knows how to read people. If he doesn't like you, I don't like you. Think of your child as the same way. If they feel bad in a place, don't go to that place. Don't make them stay there. If they don't like it, you don't like it. Trust me on this. You can feel like you're constantly walking on the edge of protecting their gifts while trying to help them be human. And you may also have struggled with grief, the fantasy of your normal child, of being a normal parent, doing it like everybody else. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with naming that this path is hard sometimes, because it totally is. Now, how do we support these little humans spiritually and practically? So many ways. Um, so, creating energetic safety, learning energy basics 101, grounding, rituals, clearing, just understanding how energy works and also how it works specifically for you and your child. You will likely be similar, though not the same. Similar enough for you to show them, for them to have a foundation and launch off of it. So, Basic Energy 101 is super helpful, whether you want to take a Reiki class or what's the other one that I love? Pranic healing is really good too. Get a basic understanding of how energy works. Donna Eden's energy book is really great as well. Validate their experiences. Please do not gaslight their gifts. It only takes a handful of times of a parent making the child feel crazy that they will take on this belief that they're crazy and what they experience isn't real. And then they will spend their entire life trying to unravel it. So even if you don't understand, even if you don't believe, you still have to validate their experience and mean it. And if you can't, get help. Work on your stuff so that you can. Let them have access to spiritual tools as early as possible, like divination tools, tarot cards, meditation classes, instructions, yoga, getting out in nature, seeing psychics or other practitioners, exposing them to as much as you can. Any kind of indigenous medicine is great. I'm not super big on the new agey stuff. You want to be as grounded and like nature based as possible because we're here on earth for a reason. Nature medicine is where it's at, and the kids are going to pick that up quickly. Let them take the lead sometimes. Let them be in charge and make the choices and tell you what feels good and doesn't. What are they interested in naturally? Is it fairies or angels or plants? Animals? Do they want to volunteer? Do they want to go play in the stream? Let them show you because they already know. We just have to get out of the way and let them be them. Say no when you need to say no. Say it with love because firm boundaries and teaching boundaries, holding boundaries is going to be an active part of this process. And it's an important part of the spiritual path as well. It helps to give them words for what they're experiencing because in the spiritual work, words are very hard. And so do that however you need to do that. Get a coach, get a mentor, read some books. Help them put some words to what's going on so that they can process and share in a better way, in a more accessible way to them. Allow them to question everything. But, you can correct lovingly disrespectful things. And I don't mean like what you think is disrespectful, I mean like harmful disrespectful. There's a lot of like unspoken old timey rules that float around in our society, and we don't want to push that on them. And probably the most important is to teach emotional regulation through co regulation, which means you need to learn how to regulate yourself. If you don't know what that means, please get help. If you cannot handle your big emotions, if you do not feel big emotions, if you do not feel the waves of emotions, there's some work that needs to be done. And there are so many people available to help you. But that is the best way for them to learn, especially when they're young. I found that helping them name their energy and emotions is one of the best things that we can do. It gives them power and sovereignty, and routines have also been very huge. But most importantly is remembering that they can feel everything that goes inside you, that goes on inside you. If you don't believe them, they know. If you're frustrated, they know. It's the ultimate test for you as a spiritual being to get your shit in check. It's now or never with these kids. Like, it can't wait. They won't stand for it. They will peace out on us. Trust me. So for me, I had to figure out how to human first, and now I can help them. And that is one thing that I do most with clients is help them be human. It's help them be human and spiritual and do it as efficiently as possible. Thank you for joining me on this podcast. I really felt that it was important to let other parents know that they're not alone. There is going to be more of this in our future. And I invite you to ask if you're in this position, what is your child here to teach you? Mine is teaching me how to step into my power and how to be myself in the weirdest, most authentic, joyful way possible. Both of my kids are here to teach me that. So I invite you to reflect, to share, to connect with me, to connect with each other, whatever feels good for you. Thank you for joining me on the podcast today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to know more about me and my work, you can find me at www.sacredheartshaman.com.